crisis has intensified. More anchors, reporters, and commentators are speaking out against President Biden's stance of not allowing journalists to visit the overcrowded Texas facilities.
Blocking access to the news media is not leveling with the American people, Mr. President.
The Biden administration kept talking about transparency, and we're not getting any transparency here with what is happening at the border.
And NBC's Kristen Welker challenged the president at that first news conference.
Will you commit to allowing journalists to have access to the facilities that are overcrowded moving forward?
I will commit when my plan very shortly is underway to let you have access to not just them, but to other facilities as well.
But, Guy, the president didn't agree to a timetable, neither did Jen Psaki on Fox News Sunday this morning. I can't reach any other conclusion other than the Biden team knows the media are heavily focused on this border crisis and don't want pictures that would fuel especially the television coverage.
Well, it's completely unacceptable. And I think if the exact same thing were happening during the Trump administration with these same restrictions on the press, the explosion of fury within the media would be a lot louder than it is. I'm glad we're hearing something about it. We should hear a lot more. The Biden administration created this crisis. They're sort of denying the crisis while blocking access to the press to document the crisis firsthand. There's an NBC News report that they're not allowing ride-alongs for reporters at the border. They're saying direct all questions to Washington. Don't talk to journalists down there. They're calling it a gag order at the border on top of the lack of access to the facilities. The kids in cages, as the Democrats would call them. It's outrageous.
Well, Liz, the White House did allow NBC reporter Gabe Gutierrez, and let's put up some of the footage that his crew shot, to go to an HHS facility, a nice one with a soccer field, not as overcrowded, but not the Border Patrol facilities that are badly overcrowded. Let's hear a little bit from his report.
The children we saw today were calm, and they seemed to be in good spirits, but this issue is about much more than just this one HHS facility.
So he knew what was going on. Do you think it's the growing media pressure, though, that kind of prompted the White House at least to allow one reporter access to one facility?
Well, yes, but in and of itself, that's ridiculous. Guy is absolutely right. You know, the Biden administration was supposed to turn the page on what President Trump was heavily criticized for, and that was no transparency. They were supposed to be transparent, and then the first move they make is to be non-transparent. It is ridiculous. It's outrageous. And this is starting to get a lot of attention and traction with the media. And as you can see, you know, whether it was NBC or Cecilia Vega on ABC, where she had her facts and numbers, and she pushed him hard. And at one point he said, is that a real question? You know, he bristled. We've seen President Trump bristle, certainly. They do that. But the fact is that the press is now pushing hard, and they absolutely should. Biden is very, very vulnerable to criticism here.
Right. That's Cecilia Vega from ABC. She had talked about interviewing a 9-year-old Honduras boy who had walked from his home country to the border, and I thought that was one standout moment. Again, we'll talk about the presser later. You talked about President Trump, who certainly got lots of moral condemnation, Guy, from the press over his treatment of migrant families, especially separating families. But even knowing they were going to get beat up over it, the Trump administration did allow journalists access to these facilities.
Yeah, the transparency was much better, actually, during the previous administration on this front. And I would say the family separation policy was a disaster politically and on a humanitarian basis, but that was short-lived. A lot of the future policies beyond that actually helped clean up the mess down there and mitigate a lot of the struggle, those were immediately swept aside by Team Biden, leading to the current crisis that we have. And again, they're actively trying to cover it up. And it's astonishing that President Biden was asked about this. Can you commit to transparency? He said, well, yes, eventually. They said, when? He said, I don't know. How is that an acceptable answer? Of course it's not.
Liz, Axios obtained some pictures of border facilities that had been leaked to Democratic Congressman Henry Cuellar. And once that happened, I think it's pretty clear that the media are going to get these images one way or another. And the White House must know it's losing control of the narrative here and can't just say this is, just a small problem that we are dealing with.
Well, they let Gabe go in from NBC, and they brought him to, a model
facility, yes.
Really happening here. And President Trump, going back to, he was highly critical of the press, but this is where the press shines. freedom of the press, get that sunshine in there, blast in the lights and the cameras and the action, and you see what's going on, and the press will find out. And there should be respect for them and for anybody who's trying to get in there and see the true story. You can't just sit there and say, I'll let you guys in when the optics look better, where we can clean things up. This is a humanitarian crisis, obviously, and the press needs to be very, very hard and press and continue on that.
And we have a moment of consensus here, and I think even the mainstream media are united that this is not acceptable, as Guy put it. Guy Benson, Liz Claman, great discussion. Thanks very much for joining us this Sunday.